Ball is caught by Bellinger. What a catch!
With a world heavyweight title line in the balance.
You are now listening to Jocks and Geeks with J&P. Let's go.
Hey yo, that's right. This is the J and the JMP podcast. Welcome back, baby. This is the JMP podcast. Everything from the diamond to the gridiron to between the squared circle. That's right, baby. We got it all covered. Let's get right into it. And my co-host is, as always, my trusty sidekick. We are Nick and Matt. We are the JMP. Let's bring him right in. P, what you saying today?
Red Rock, yeah. What's up, guys? I am the P in the JP podcast. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at AlienPStar88. You can find me on Xbox Live, also AlienPStar88, playing that Fortnite. But hey, let's talk about MLB today. Let's go.
October baseball is here, people. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the best time of the year, baby, to be a sports fan. You got it all. You got NFL, NBA, 9 days away. But let's get right into it, baby. The MLB playoffs in full swing. And here we are. First time ever for the Washington Nationals, the Nats, that is correct, the Nats, going to the World Series after completing a 4-game sweep of the St. Louis Cardinals, in which the Cardinals never even led a single inning in this 4-game sweep. I say that the way I'm saying it because if you guys heard one of our earlier shows, my World Series prediction was the St. Louis Cardinals representing the National League versus the New York Yankees. They're out. They're swept. We got to give credit where credit's due. The Nationals pitching right there. Not Schwartz. I'm thinking of the Cubs, man. But their pitching staff has been unbelievable up to date. Not to mention their batting is on point. Not to mention, along with the Washington making their first ever appearance in the World Series, the Yankees, huge loss today to the Houston Astros after they started with the 7-1 beatdown of Houston in Houston. Then you had Reddick coming back and hitting that home run and the bottom of the 11th inning in Houston to tie that up at 1. Today they were in the Bronx, and man, I tell you what, Garrett Cole owned them all night. He pitched almost a perfect game. He had everybody baffled on that New York staff. I call him the Bronx Bombers 2.0, but today they couldn't figure out Garrett Cole. He pitched a masterful performance. Houston is looking like that 2017 team that won the World Series. They're stacked. I'm a little worried because I do have the Yankees winning it all, but it is in full swing. If you're a Yankees fan, and I know we got actually some Yankees fans that listen to our show, if you're a Yankees fan, don't panic. Don't hit the panic button. The Yankees are who they are all season. They keep in mind they barely got Giancarlo Stanton back. He missed the entire season. He's played maybe a total of 5 total games this year. He's still working his way back into the rotation. You still got, Gregorio, Didi Gregorio, who's kind of struggling a little bit. Edwin Encarnacion, who hasn't really, done much yet. So you still got those 2 bats. You got Aaron Judge, who's played well. Your pitching hasn't been, all that there. But if you're a Yankees fan, don't hit the panic button. You got Giancarlo Stanton back in the lineup for tomorrow. You got Phil Gardner, Mark Gardner, who's gonna break out. Yankees fans, relax. Although if you're Houston fans, feel very optimistic. With this pitching performance, you got a 2-headed monster with Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole, 2 Cy Young right there contenders in your own team. Altuve, what can you say? That guy is 5'6" at best, one of the best players in the entire league. You got Josh Reddick. Houston is stacked. This is, in my opinion, the winner of this series. Regardless, I'd like for it to be New York, just for the mere fact that I picked them to win the whole thing. But the winner of this series, in my opinion, is going to be your next world champion. No disrespect to the Nats whatsoever, because they looked impressive sweeping the Cardinals. But I got to tell you, Pat, I know you had the Dodgers, and if I'm not mistaken, you had the Yanks too, though, right?
Yeah.
In the American League. So, what do you think about the Nats making their first ever appearance?
So the crazy thing about that is the big story of the summer is where Bryce Harper was gonna go. That was the main thing that was on everybody's mind. Where's Bryce going? Where's Bryce going? He went to Philadelphia, and I don't think he lived up to what he did. And the crazy thing about it is the Nationals still prevailed without their top player, and I just think that's like a slap to his face because it showed that he was the one that was holding them back. The Yankees, watching the game against Houston, they had some kind of it felt like some juice going. It looked like that they were going to come back at the end. They fizzled out, but at the same time, it looked like, hey, you know what? They're going to give Houston a game in the last inning. Of course, they didn't. They ended up losing 4-1. And personally, like you said, don't freak out yet because look at what the Yankees did in Houston. They won a game. They won a game in Houston. So I wouldn't be surprised if they take the next game, which is game 4.
I think this goes 7.
It could go 7. I can see it, but personally, if Houston can keep their pitching squad up, then I see them winning. I mean, we all want the Yankees to go back because it's the Yankees. How can you not root against them? It's like they're like the Cowboys of the NFL. You either hate them or you love them. And honestly, being being about the teams right now, the Yankees are the hot teams right now. So,
I think this goes 7. I think that the winner of this series, as I just mentioned a few minutes ago, is going to win the whole thing. No disrespect to the Nationals, as I mentioned. Is while we're still on the baseball topic, that's a great point that you brought up. Bryce Harper was the most sought out free agent that we've had in forever when it comes to the game. You're right. He goes to Philadelphia. You barely even heard his. The only time you heard his name is when basically he was leading the league in sales for jerseys. He should have signed with the Cubbies. My Cubbies, that's right. The Cubbies would probably been in a better situation, but regardless, he didn't sign. He signed with Philly. Washington said, "Up yours, Bryce," because now we're in the World Series. And going around the baseball doings just a little bit, real quick. So Joe Madden is already talking to possibly being the next manager of the Anaheim Angels. That would be a huge get for the Angels because that's what will put him over the hump. I don't really like the candidates that are talking to the Cubs right now to coming in. Theo Epstein's got a few candidates. Going also around the league is, you got some stuff going on in Cleveland as far as Francisco Lindor is one of the best players in baseball. He's stuck in Cleveland. This is going to be a huge offseason for them themselves because they have a notorious history of building players from the ground up and losing them to free agency just because they cannot afford them. But what let's not forget what's also going on in Boston. Boston came in with so much hype this season. This is the time, if I'm Boston executives, I will look hard in the mirror. But you know what? As a Boston fan, I'm hating this right now because I'm a huge Houston Astros fan. I hate the Yankees. Once again, they're 3 games away from being in the World Series. So before I throw it to you, no pun intended, before I pitch it right back to you, let me go ahead and give you a couple of predictions coming up for the World Series. I do think that this will go 7. I think the Yankees will prevail. I think that the Nats and Yankees will go 6. The Nats deserve respect. I think the Yankees bats wake up. I think Giancarlos is only getting a little bit more in the flow of things when you got a 3-headed monster with Gary Sanchez. Edwin Encarnacion has got to wake up. Then you got Aaron Judge and Didi Gregorio with that pitching staff. I think they prevail. And I think that, and if I'm not, his first full year of managing the Yankees, I think Boone is going to lead him to a World Series, which is going to be a huge deal. Other than that, if you're, I think we got a couple of Yankees fans that are fans of ours. I can't think of the name right off the top of our head, but what I will say is, I am not at all supporting the Houston. I live in Texas, but here's my prediction: Yankees in 7, baby.
yeah, you know what? I mean, honestly, at that point, with the Yankees being the Yankees, how can you not expect them to do anything other than what the Yankees do? And the Yankees, all they do is win. And that's one thing that we both know is that the Yankees do win the. I honestly think they'll win. If the bats wake up, it's going to be six. That's honestly what I think. If the Yankees bats wake up, it's going to be six. Now, Houston's pitching staff is amazing. You can't take away anything from Houston. I just don't think that they'll prevail. I personally don't. And with the Nats, the way that they're playing, man, they started off the first two games, what, seven? No, today it was 7-0. Then the first inning. And then on the last game, they were what, 8-0, 9-0? Their bats are too hot right now. I see the Nats winning in six
They
games.
never trailed. Schwarzer, that's I can't think of the kid's name. It was skipping my. I know exactly what I'm going to talk about, but Schwarzer is the best pitcher in baseball right now, and that's saying a lot. What he's doing with Washington is crazy impressive, and that's saying a lot because, as I mentioned, Cy Young, you have Justin Verlander, you got Garrett Cole from Houston, but that's American League. What Schwarzer's doing, keep in mind, this kid had Tommy John surgery just 2 years ago, and what he's doing for this franchise is unbelievable. No one can hit him right now. He's unhittable right now. So with that being said, P Money, let's go ahead and get right to it. Right to it. We got to go ahead and we got something. Speaking of hot stoves and hot subjects, we got something brewing in the NBA. Tell us a little bit about it, P.
Man, the NBA, there is so much going on right now. It's crazy. There's a shirt going around that's talking about LeBron being part of the Chinese government. I mean, right now with this situation, it's ridiculous. Like I understand politics and everything, but you guys are out there to play. You guys are getting paid millions upon millions. Your sponsorships are millions on millions, and you're talking about politics. I honestly think politics and sports shouldn't go together. That's me personally. I mean, you're out there to play the game, and I understand that you're trying to speak your mind, but at the same time, you got people right now in Hong Kong burning LeBron James jerseys. They're cussing him out. They're doing everything they can, and it's just one of those things where when they go to China, they make millions. When the NBA goes to China, they're making millions. And LeBron James said something that he shouldn't have. You know, keep your politics off to your side and keep politics off to the side and just keep going. You
You
know,
know what? We're gonna go ahead right now. We just introduced it on the JNP podcast. We have our JNP Idiot of the Week, and this week our first winner, ding ding ding, it is King James. You are the first edition winner of the Idiot of the Week on the JNP podcast. You have no problem collecting those millions and millions of revenue that comes in as the Chinese and wherever else the market is makes your sneakers, your jerseys, whatever else. And in this case, you're right. Shut up and dribble and keep your opinions to basketball on what you think you're gonna do in that city. But here's the thing. Never it's not just on LeBron this time around. I could easily be included in Diddy of the Week. It's not so much just so much respect, but your own coach. How about you just be quiet already, Pop? Stop talking about Donald Trump every 2 minutes. How about you go back to what you do? Coach the Spurs. Why don't you go ahead and make the Spurs? You're going. You're covering for what you haven't done. Why don't you take the Spurs? Ever since Tim Duncan retired, it's no coincidence that they cannot be higher than an 8 or 7 seed. Why don't you go back, coach the Spurs out of the 7 seed, out of the 8 seed? Why don't you stop getting bounced in the first round? And why don't you go ahead and stick to coaching? I don't want to hear your take on Donald Trump. I don't want to hear your take on every 5 minutes on what you think he should do or how he should run his country. How about you run your team? How about you run your team out of the seventh and eighth club? And very insensitive of Greg Popovich to be running his mouth. Very insensitive of LeBron James to be running his mouth because Enes Kanter, who plays for the Boston Celtics, the man cannot even go to his own country because they'll assassinate him, they'll kill him on the spot, arrest him. They death threats. His family, his dad's, pretty much, jailed because of it. His family, his brothers can't get jobs. His family is, it's crazy what this dude goes through on a daily freaking basis. But you got LeBron opening his mouth. No, he doesn't really get it. That's the problem with this.
No, yeah, I agree. And honestly, we don't like to get political on here because a lot of people might take offense to that. But I mean, these are stories that are happening now. That's something we need to cover. Speaking about covering something, Jadante Murray. Jadante Murray. I don't know if you heard, I don't know if you've seen, but there's a video out there during a preseason game against
Saw it. Saw it.
The
I know
New
what you're
Orleans
showing.
Pelicans where,
Impressive.
where Mr. Zion Williamson, the number one pick, gets blocked by him. Why don't we get any kind of coverage on that?
Because he plays for the Spurs.
But the thing is this is a big moment. Nobody's blocked him. The dude's a freight train.
But you know what would have got covered?
What?
If Zion would have dunked it all over him on nasty.
Oh yeah, that would have been like a Sports Center top 10. But Mr. Murray, we've been waiting for you to save that team. He's back. He's ready to play. He's hungry. This kid is going to do amazing things. They're calling him Kawhi Leonard 2.0. No, I call him Dejounte Murray number one. So Dejounte Murray is going to be a guy that's going to be he's going to be the one that carries the Spurs. I don't care what anybody says. He's a great player, and I personally think that with this man at the helm, we're going to be able to do everything we can as possible. Looking at early reports, they're not even expecting the Spurs to make the playoffs. Honestly, I think Spurs are going to make it for the 23rd year. So, what do you have to say about that?
Speaking of the same game, going back to that same game, I'm very excited for this NBA season. As we spoke about on our NBA preview a couple of shows ago, the New Orleans Pelicans might not make the playoffs, which I actually, let's not say might. Let's take the word might. They're not going to make the playoffs, but they're going to be a very exciting team to watch. The improvement of Zoe, I'm talking about Lonzo Ball, is crazy. This guy is balling right now, man. His shots improved. He's leading the team. That's the thing. He's always been a great passer and a defender. Speaking of DeJounte Murray's defense, Lonzo Ball's defense has always been right there. And now if he's adding the mid game, that jumper, plus as far as you got Zion and Zoe, I think that's gonna be a very fun team to watch. And not because I'm being biased, but I am very excited about Zach LaVine. He looks healthy. I'm excited about yes, Pat. I'm very excited about Zach LaVine and the Bulls because we're talking about the East. We're talking about a conference that, if you think about it, you have Milwaukee and you have Philadelphia. Aside from that you can easily say those are the shoe-in best two teams in the conference. It's a grab. We're talking about the East, Pat.
Yeah, I mean, personally, the East has always been the worst of the two conferences. I mean, you got people that are below 500 and they're making the playoffs. It's ridiculous. It's sad. You know what they should do? Just take the best 16 teams and that's it. And if that means out of the 16, 14 come out of the West and two come out of the East, so be it. Because at this point, it's getting pathetic with all these East teams that don't show up and they get rewarded to go to the playoffs. Now you have a lot of teams in the East, in the West. I mean, in the past we had Utah, we had the Spurs, we had Houston, we had Dallas, we had Phoenix, we got LA, we had both LA teams, we had Portland, Sacramento, OKC. The list goes on and on. Those were all teams that I mentioned that maybe three or four of them didn't make the playoffs because of the record. They were above 500, but they were left out of the show. Now the East, I can see potential coming out of the East. I mean, obviously an East team won it last year, which was the Raptors, but their star players are gone. Everybody that they have now, they're all gone.
I think you got it's a two-team race in the East, as I mentioned. You have Philadelphia, you have Milwaukee, and then you have decent to really good teams in Indiana, who's obviously getting Victor Oladipo back very healthy. Uh,
Yeah.
you have
Miami.
Detroit actually, Miami is a great addition, Jimmy Butler. Detroit's actually a sleeper pick. I'm not saying obviously going to
Yeah,
be a top five team, right? But Detroit, keep in mind, Blake Griffin single-handedly led them to the eighth spot last year. He was an MVP candidate for that Eastern Conference. He got banged up, and there goes that. They made a couple of nice additions. They have Andre Drummond. They have Blake Griffin. They added Derrick Rose, who's
Derrick Rose.
playing, who's playing like very, like he wants to prove that he's now changed his game in this part of his career.
Yeah,
And but other than that, I mean, the West. You're right. It's the West. It's just that's where the West is. It's everybody's there. You got the two LA teams. You got Houston. You got Portland. You got Utah, Denver. You know the Spurs. It's just crazy.
it's
It's just
overpowered.
crazy.
It's very overpowered. Now, with that being said, you know, we have very little to talk about right now. So I mean, right now since the NBA season is about to start off, you know, we really can't. We just have to wait and see what happens. We need to see how the chemistry starts. We need to see how the teams start because it's not how you start; it's how you finish. And honestly, right now, I mean, we can pick our top eight teams, and the top eight teams right now, honestly, we can't actually even name them because there's a bunch of question marks going on. Is LeBron going to fit well with Anthony Davis? Is Kawhi going to bring his style that he had in Toronto, bring it to the Clippers, and make them a powerhouse team? You know. So I mean, at this point, we just got to wait and see. The NBA season is right around the corner. We're all excited. We're opening day is going to be amazing. We're all going to have fun. Now, to wrap this up, let's go ahead and talk about sleepers. Who's the one sleeper team that you think is going to come out of the East and one sleeper team that's going to come out of the West? Go ahead, Jay.
So the West, my sleeper pick. I'm really high on Sacramento. I really like what they're doing. They got what I think could be the next Steph Curry, Klay Thompson backcourt with Buddy Hield and oh my God, he's slipping my mind. But the kid, that other backcourt. Oh, crazy hair kid. What's his name? From Kentucky. You know who I'm talking
Yeah, I
about.
know exactly who you're talking
It's slipping my mind. But either way, Sacramento, my sleeper pick from the West. And even though I would love it to be the Bulls, which I know it's not going to be, but no, in all honesty, sleeper pick in the East, Detroit. I like Detroit.
I mean, I can agree with Detroit because Detroit is coming up and they are going to be they're going to be a force to reckon with. But honestly, my sleeper of the year for the West, and it's going to be one of those things that
Darian Fox.
yeah, Darian Fox. I was actually looking that up right now. But one of the sleepers that I say that everybody's even though they have um, Steph Curry, I think
Are you
Golden State.
seriously gonna say that Golden State is a sleeper?
Yeah, the Golden State is a sleeper because right now they have everyone hurt. They lost Kevin Durant. They lost Boogie. They lost what's his name? Iggy. What's his name? Andre Iguodala. They lost him. So I mean, they're losing a lot of their players that they came off the bench and did something. We don't know when Klay Thompson's coming back. I mean, that injury was pretty bad. But, you still have the man, Steph Curry, and they actually don't have them very high. I think they have them like as a seventh or eighth seed. But personally, they can go top three. That's just my opinion. They could go top three. If Steph Curry puts up, 40 points a game, I mean, he's done it several different times. You can see Golden State being a top three team.
Well, I mean, I was thinking more of a sleeper as far as like people, a team coming out of nowhere that no one expects. But yeah, you bring up valid points. Not to mention Sean Livingston, who's been a key part of their team, retired in the offseason too. So
That's
I could definitely see that. I could see Golden State coming out, and even though let's not act like they're little sisters poor of the Mary, because you still have Steph Curry, as you mentioned, who could go to that MVP Curry and average 30 to 40 points a game. They added D'Angelo Russell, who had a breakout season with the Brooklyn Nets last year. You still have Draymond Green. I mean, there's good players there still, right? And obviously, Steve Kerr's your coach. But I like it. I like it. And then in the East, I know you kind of agree on Detroit, but is that who you're going with? Is it sleeper? Do you have somebody else in mind?
Honestly, I've always been a fan of Derrick Rose, even when he came out of Memphis. I mean, he's a type of player that everyone loved to watch. He was a type of player that, he was doing things like Manu was doing. He was putting up points. He was doing everything. When he tore his ACL, it was, everyone was worried about him. After he came back, he got injured again, and everyone's like, he's Mr. Glass. You can't even he can't even go to the hole. But like you said, he worked on his game. He basically changed how he was, and now he's playing more of smarter basketball instead of that go in the paint,
I
go
think the
hard.
resurrection of Derrick Rose has started Minnesota last season. And I think you're right. Will we ever see the explosive Derrick Rose? Because whether people may not realize this, but Derrick Rose was for a couple of years there, right up there with LeBron James, the best player in the NBA. Uh,
Yep.
was taking the Bulls against Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. Uh, we'll never see that Derrick Rose ever again. Obviously, right? That's gone. But as
Yeah.
you mentioned, he has now, after all these injuries that he suffered, has changed his style and his game. He's efficient, as you mentioned. He's smart. He's taking jumpers. He's controlling the offense at his own tempo. It's a low key great addition, in my opinion, because, as I mentioned, if Blake Griffin single handedly took that Detroit team to the playoffs, and he got hurt. But when you have Andre Drummond, you have Blake Griffin, you have Reggie Jackson, you have a couple other pieces there, and you add Derrick Rose, who's on a mission to prove that he still has game, who still belongs in this game and this league. I'm not saying Detroit is gonna be a top four seed. That's not what I'm saying here. But as a sleeper, I like Detroit's chances to actually compete for maybe a fifth, a sixth seed, and actually sneak up on people, maybe win a round or two. Actually,
I mean, they have the pieces there. They just gotta make sure that they put them all in the right place, because that is, like I said, Detroit is going to be overlooked, and they're not a bad team. They're really not. And in the preseason they're 2-2, but like they said, preseason doesn't really count.
the Spurs
Preseason,
are winless in the preseason.
exactly, and that what's going to happen with the Spurs. They're gonna win games. They're gonna get back to the playoffs, and everybody's already looking down at them. So with that being said, let's go ahead and end the show on that great note, because I mean, sleepers are what we're about to do. Is we're all about to sleep. So for the J&P podcast, this is the P in the J&P. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at AlienPStar88. You can catch me playing some Fortnite since it's back. We're going to have a special episode for y'all. If y'all are big into Fortnite, if you're not, oh well. But I will have an episode especially for that. Find me on Xbox Live on AlienPStar88. Catch us on Twitter at the J&P Podcast. Give us questions. We'll answer them. We want more questions. We're waiting for more people to ask us questions so we can give out a pop from my collection. Please send us your questions. We'll answer them. Let's kick it off to Jay. Send us off.
Let's do it, baby. And once again, let's close this bad boy up. Like I said, shout out to Detroit basketball. Shout out to Andy the Great, because without him, none of these shows will be possible. Keep on listening. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow my boy P on all his 25 social media, what he's got going on there, man. But I'm at J Hill for right now. And as I mentioned, baby, please continue to listen to us. It's only going to get better. Stay on the ride with us. As always, that is P. That is Andy the Great. I am J. I'm the bad guy. Say goodbye to the bad guy. Yo.
You say that.